Philadelphia 76ers did not have a single pick in this year's NBA draft, but that didn't stop them from adding some rookies to the roster. Immediately following the conclusion of the draft, the Sixers signed Ricky Council IV, Azuolas Tubelis, Terquavian Smith, as well as one more player a lot of people aren't talking about, but we'll get to him later. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Cole from Philadelphia Media, and today we're going to be getting into 4 undrafted players the Sixers signed on Thursday night. If at any point you like what you're watching, do me a favor and hit the like button, and do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And, as always, comment your thoughts. Without further ado, Ricky Council IV. Council comes from Arkansas, where he was their leading scorer last season, averaging 16.1 points per game. The 6'6", 21-year-old signed a two-way contract with the Sixers. Timeout. What's a two-way contract? Players signed to two-way contracts will spend the bulk of the season in the NBA G League and not more than 45 days with their NBA team. Two-way players are paid a corresponding daily amount based on the number of days they play in each league. Only players in their 4th NBA season or earlier are able to sign two-way contracts, which can be for either 1 or 2 seasons. NBA teams are allowed to have 2 such players on their roster during the season. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Council began his college career when he committed to Wichita State University. He spent 2 years as a Shocker, where he averaged 9.9 points per game on 43.2% shooting from the field, 33.9% from 3, as well as 4.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and 0.8 steals per game. While at Wichita State, he accumulated AAC All-Freshman honors in his first season, and then AAC Sixth Man of the Year in his second. Following that season, he transferred to Arkansas. Last year at Arkansas, Council averaged over 16 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1.1 steals per game. It says something about Council's scoring ability that he was on the same team as first-round picks in this year's draft, Anthony Black and Nick Smith Jr., and was still the leading scorer. Council is an explosive player who has a knack for finishing at the rim. Something he didn't get to showcase in college was his playmaking ability. Council's older brother, who is actually also named Ricky Council, he's Ricky Council II, he told Forbes that when he was helping his younger brother with the transfer process, he reached out to coaches of interested teams and asked them if they'd be able to showcase his playmaking ability. Ultimately, Arkansas was a good fit for him, but didn't really do that. They didn't use him in a ball handling role too much, but he did a nice job of it when given the chance. The biggest flaw in Council's game is his inconsistency from three-point land. He shot just 27% from beyond this past season, which won't cut it in the National Basketball Association. He also needs to improve his free throw shooting, as he was just a 79% shooter from the charity stripe last season. If you're going to drive as much as he does, you better be able to convert some and-one opportunities. Overall, I like Council a lot. I think if he improves his shooting and becomes more consistent, he's an NBA talent for sure. The Sixers might just need to give him some time to figure things out, which I'm sure they will. I don't think they're expecting an undrafted free agent to be a big part of the team anytime soon. Another player the Sixers picked up on a two-way contract was Azuolas Tubelis, the big man from Arizona. Now, Tubelis is going to be a guy who needs to improve his game quite a bit if he wants to make a smooth transition to the NBA. I'm actually surprised the Sixers are even giving him a chance. Well, I'm not sure that's surprising, but what I should say is I'm not surprised he didn't get drafted. Don't get me wrong, I like Tubelis. I watched him in college the past 3 years, and it was fun to see his progression from like 12 points per game his freshman year to 19.8 last season. He's a big dude, 6'11", 245 pounds, but I've also seen some other outlets say he's closer to like 6'9". He's not going to be a center in the NBA. He's a power forward, but size isn't his problem. His problem is his game is very limited. He's a strong presence in the post. He's got a really nice little hook shot that he loves utilizing, and he's actually a left-hander, so that's an interesting wrinkle to his game. But outside of the scoring on the inside, that's really all he's got. Yes, he can run in transition and often goes coast to coast, since he does have some really good ball handling skills for a big, but I don't really think that'll translate to the NBA. I mean, the ball handling might, but then again, if you've seen the videos of Mitchell Robinson's handles, he's looking like Allen Iverson in the open gym, but in game, you never see him bust out any of those moves because he's 7 feet tall. Anyway, I don't really think the transition game will translate because I think that's more of a product of playing against some lesser defenders. I'm not knocking the Pac-12 or any of his other opponents, but let's be real here. It's a little easier to go coast to coast against Oregon State than it is against the Milwaukee Bucks. His issue is he's not a shooter. This past season, we saw teams average in the NBA 34.2 three-point attempts per game. Compare that to 10 years ago, the league average was just 20.0 per game. Today, it's a shooter's league, my friend. Adapt or die. Tubelis better adapt. He's a very good rebounder. He's a decent defender. I don't really know if he has the size to guard a 5, but maybe he does. But he certainly doesn't have the lateral quickness to switch onto a guard like someone like Bam Adebayo would be able to. But he's a pretty good passer, so he's got that going for him. And overall, he's got quite a bit to prove. If he can become a more frequent jump shooter and develop the ability to shoot a three-pointer, he might be something one day. Next up is Terquavian Smith, a guard from NC State, and believe it or not, you're probably familiar with him. Not for his basketball skill, although you might be, but for the video of him looking for something to break in a timeout. Yeah, that guy's a Sixer now. He was also signed to a two-way deal and has drawn comparisons to Bones Highland. That's because Smith stands 6'4", but weighs just 160 pounds. He's a thin, wiry guy, but that doesn't mean he's afraid to take it to the rack. Fearless is actually the word I'd use to describe Terquavian Smith, but being fearless comes with a price. Let's flash back to his freshman year where he averaged 16.3 points per game on 39.8% field goal shooting and 36.9% three-point shooting. Inefficient, but a scorer. Looking to build off that, this past year, his sophomore season, he averaged 17.9 points per game on 38% field goal shooting and 33.6% from three-point land. The scoring went up, but the already inefficient shooting got even worse. That fearlessness leads to some not-so-fantastic shot selection. He's certainly not afraid to pull it from downtown. But would you rather a guy who doesn't know when to stop shooting or a guy who's afraid to take a jumper? The age-old question, right? Nobody wants a Ben Simmons. You'll take that Jordan Poole 10 times out of 10. I specifically remember Al Horford telling reporters, shoot or shoot, when they asked him about why he kept putting up three-pointers despite not being able to hit water if he fell out of a boat. What a fever dream that was when Al Horford was a Sixer. Anyway, we're not here to talk about old guys. We're here to talk about these young guns. Terquavian Smith knows how to fill up the scoring column. Back in February, Smith put up 32 points on 6 for 10 three-point shooting against Florida State. He also put up 30 on 11 for 13 shooting, and he was 5 for 7 from 3 against Virginia Tech during the ACC tournament. Lastly, despite their first-round loss to Creighton in the NCAA tourney, Smith led NC State in scoring with 32. He's got the ability to score in bunches. He just needs to be more efficient and put on some more weight. Unfortunately for him, as I was talking about earlier, NBA teams can only have two-way players on their roster. That means there's going to be an odd man out between Council, Tubelis, and Smith. My instincts tell me Council is probably going to get one of those spots, and it'll be between Tubelis and Smith for the other spot. The unfortunate part for Smith is that he's not going to be able to put on some serious weight and become a more efficient scorer that quickly, by the start of the Summer League. For him and Tubelis, as well as Council, they'll have to just trust their ability. Now, on to the last guy here, who I'm not hearing very many people talk about. It's Marcus Bagley from Arizona State. The reason nobody's really talking about him is because he was signed to an Exhibit 10 contract. Time out. What's an Exhibit 10 contract? You didn't expect me to teach you all this great stuff about NBA contracts, did you? Welcome to the classroom. Take a seat. It has a lot to do with financials and guaranteed versus non-guaranteed, bonus money, all that type of stuff. But for our purpose, we just really need to know that it's a one-year minimum contract that the Sixers can decide to turn into a two-way contract if they want to. Of course, we talked about those earlier, and then if the Sixers decide to do that, it'll have to be done prior to the start of the regular season. Otherwise, they'll just have to send him to the G League, or they could say goodbye to him altogether. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. So in theory, Bagley will be competing with all those guys as well for a two-way contract. And yes, he is Marvin Bagley's younger brother. Similar to his brother, he dealt with injuries throughout his 3-year college career at ASU. Bagley had a tumultuous college career, to say the least. He was limited to 12 games his freshman year due to injuries, and then he entered the NBA draft, but he also maintained his college eligibility, and he made it clear that he wasn't going to come back to Arizona State. But at the start of his sophomore season, he was indeed back at Arizona State, where he played just 3 games. He hurt his knee that season, and he didn't return for the rest of the season. Then last year, in his 3rd year, after playing just 2 games, he left the program. Based on some tweets he put out, it seemed like him and head coach Bobby Hurley did not really get along. He's 6'8", 215 pounds, so he's a pretty big wing. He shoots the 3 pretty well. He shot 35% in his college career from 3. He rebounds well enough, and he's a fine defender. But he's a true project player, a no-risk player, especially signing him to that Exhibit 10 contract. Extremely limited college career despite being there for 3 years, multiple injuries, and kind of a questionable character considering he blasted his head coach on Twitter. If he's good, you keep him around. If not, you let him go and won't really regret it. It seems like a win-win to me. That's pretty much it for the Sixers as of right now. Stay tuned for more Sixers content throughout the offseason. I'm planning a video where I'll put together what I think the Sixers should do this offseason. And spoiler, it's going to be a lot. Anyway, if you made it this far, you must have enjoyed it, so go ahead and leave a like. Maybe even subscribe too if you're feeling generous. Leave a comment if you feel so inclined. I will certainly respond. Also, check out some of my previous videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time.